what happened to the second half of the 20th century? If you're growing up in, say, 1900 and you're reading H.G. Wells, and you're imagining what the world would be like 50 years later, well, you basically got it right. There were flying machines and submarines and rockets and talking boxes and TV, radio, so forth and so on. Some didn't get the time machine, but a lot of the basic gamut of inventions they expected to happen did in fact happen. Now, here's me growing up in the 60s, sort of imagining what the world is going to be like, and we all kind of knew what was going to happen too. There was a similar list of stuff, and there were going to be anti-gravity sleds and teleportation devices and Mars bases and robot androids that could do chores for you, and immortality drugs, and there's a basic standard list. And I don't think any of us expected we'd get all of that stuff within our own lives. But I don't think it occurred to any of us that we wouldn't get any of them. And the thing that fascinated me is that I know that everybody who grew up then, thought this stuff was going to happen. Well, if you were growing up at that time, it wasn't just fantasy. It was, authoritative voices. You go to the planetarium, you read National Geographic, you watch those TV science shows. All your elders who were supposed to know about this stuff were assuring you this is what was going to happen. That we actually believed that these things were going to happen has been wiped away as an embarrassment in our memory. So, okay, the question for me became why. Two things really jumped to the fore. And one of them was the degree to which there was a self-conscious change of direction in investment, in research and development. It was a kind of a ruling class freak out. People started saying, oh my God, what's going to happen when robots replace workers? So, it was a reaction to the unrest of the 60s. People saying, all this unrest, imagine what it's going to be like, when the entire working class is replaced by robots, are all going to turn into hippies and dropouts, and it's going to be chaos. In that ferment, there's this idea that technological change is just happening too quickly. All this space age stuff is endangering the social order. And around that time, there was indeed a shift in the direction of investment, technological investment, away from all that sort of space age stuff towards investment, essentially in information technology, in medical technology, and military technology. And that's where all the money's been ever since. The first thought you have is, oh, right, if they've been pouring money into that stuff, we still don't have a cure for cancer. We still don't have the immortality drugs. I mean, we've got Ritalin and Prozac and all this stuff that is useful for social control, but the really good stuff we never got even there. And even military technology, I mean, where's Klaatu? Where's the giant killer robot shooting death rays? We know they've been working on that. But even that stuff, they really haven't got, they got these model airplanes that can blow people up, whoop-de-doo. If you want to maximize the possibility, and I'll end with this, of unexpected breakthroughs, it's pretty obvious, what the best policy is. You get a bunch of creative people, you give them the resources they need for a certain amount of time, you maybe let them hang out with each other, but basically you leave them alone. And, most of them are going to end up not coming up with anything at all, but a few of them will probably come up with something that will even surprise themselves. If you want to minimize the possibility of unexpected breakthroughs, take those same people and then tell them they're not going to get any resources at all unless they spend the majority of their time competing with one another to prove to you they already know what they're going to create. Well, that's the system we have, and it's incredibly effective in stifling any possibility of innovation.